Hoshizora no Memoria was the first moege I ever read all the way back in 2013 when it was just a fan translation. At that point, I'd only tried out story-heavy visual novels or ones with heavy drama, so it was nice to try one that was more on the light-hearted romance slice-of-life heavy side with just a little bit of drama. That said, maybe it was because it was my first real moege, but when I first read it, I was a bit more willing to forgive its many flaws. But after reading more moege that heavily improved upon Hoshimemo's flaws while also doing some of its strengths better, I've become a bit harsher on Hoshimemo over time. I definitely still think it has its pluses though. For example, many people, myself included, agree that the overall presentation is excellent, especially with the HD re-release by Sekai Project. The excellent, vibrant colored sprites and CGs are great, and the music has excellent atmosphere and emotional resonance. Even if I don't like all the characters, I do have to admit, in the vast majority of the routes, the drama is actually pretty interesting for the most part. Every character is taken on some character arc of sorts, so even if you don't like most of the characters, it is worth to read their routes. And well, you're kind of forced to since there's a locked true route. Sadly, as said earlier, Hoshimemo has a lot of flaws for me, including an overly long common route. A few heroine routes end up not really developing the heroine enough or just straight up are way too short, and well, the pacing in general, the average read time according to VNDB is 60 hours, and Hoshimemo 100% did not need to be that long as a whole. But to me, the real issue of Hoshizora no Memoria and, well, favorite as a developer is their humor. For some ungodly reason, Hoshizora no Memoria has some of the most obnoxiously repetitive, generic anime-style humor I've seen in any visual novel. Naturally, the first one we gotta point out is the ever so maligned Chinami. This girl is the ultimate idiotic little sister girl failure who has to yell at the top of her lungs literally every in-game morning. But also, she sucks at a lot of things, including cooking, and, mild spoilers, she never gets better. So it's just a tiring joke with her that's way overused in the over 50 hours of reading you have to do for this visual novel. I don't hate Chinami as much as others do, but I definitely do agree her humor is way overused, and unfortunately, overuse is not limited to Chinami. For some reason, this visual novel loves to abuse the main character, Yol, for no reason, which sucks because for a protagonist, he's a surprisingly decently okay guy. He is on the plain side as one might expect, but I'd say he has a little bit more personality and snark while still being kind-hearted. Unfortunately, many of the heroines can't help but mistreat him specifically, which makes me think that the humor in this game was written for masochist readers. If you like being physically hit, being told you're going to be killed or sued for sexual harassment, or be lit on fire by a mini dragon, then congratulations, this is the visual novel for you. But unfortunately, it was not for me, as I thought these jokes were bad to begin with, but reused way too often as a way to make the girls moe, apparently. It says something when there's only two heroines I can say I legitimately liked, Asuho and the true heroine, which, by the way, I thought it was a dumb idea for the visual novel to keep her identity name hidden because figuring out the mystery of her name doesn't really change much of anything. Part of why in the video title I put favorite as a developer's humor sucks is because a decade after Hoshimemo got its English fan translation, we finally got a translation of Irotoridori no Sekai, also by favorite, but translated by Neko-Neon. And while I definitely liked that game as a whole more than Hoshimemo, it sadly still has a lot of similar, repetitive, unfunny humor issues as Hoshimemo. Mostly in the fact that the humor is ungodly repetitive, just like Hoshimemo, especially in the common route. Tsukasa, while not as bad as Chinami, I've seen many people complain of how much of a girl failure she is, being useless and overly clumsy, but hey, at least she's nice and not an obnoxious little sister. While I personally liked Akana a lot, I can see why people would get tired of her quirky antics and sometimes girl failure moments. I could also see people get tired of Mio's generic tsundereisms, Kyo's selfish gamer tendencies, and for me personally, Suzu's lazy bitchy tendencies. Basically, why I'm quickly bringing up Iroseka is that Hoshimemo was one of Favorites' earlier titles and was fairly popular. I guess the developers, writers, and executives must have had it in their minds that overly repetitive, generic anime humor is the way to go to attempt to make the readers laugh or make the heroines appealing. It might work for some, but I really do not like the majority of what they've done between Hoshimemo and Iroseka as far as humor goes, and part of why I can't rate the two games as high as I wish I could. I want to be more excited for more titles by Favorite, especially Sakura Moyu, as many people call this the Kamige of Nakige Utsuge. but the fact that I will most likely have to deal with more of Favorite's repetitive, shallow humor makes me more hesitant to read it and other titles developed by Favorite, which is a darn shame.